Well, today is Good Friday. And when you look at the scripture, Matthew 27 is where we're going to be looking today. And there's a lot of bad things that are going on this day. So if you were just to hand this to somebody that didn't know anything about the Bible or anything about Christianity and say, hey, read about Good Friday, they would think you're crazy because there's really nothing on the surface that is good here. We see it starts out with Judas committing suicide. And then Jesus is taken before Pilate, and Pilate really doesn't want to, he wants to release him, but the Pharisees stirred up the crowd and convinced him to release Barabbas instead of releasing Jesus. And so to keep a riot from happening, Pilate caved in to the crowd and had Jesus crucified. They beat him, they mocked him, and they hung him on the cross, and the mocking continued. And then in verse 45, the mocking stops. Because the miracles began. It says, now from the 6th hour, darkness fell upon all the land until the 9th hour. About the 9th hour, Jesus cried out in a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? And some of those who were standing there, when they heard it, began saying, this man is calling for Elijah. Immediately one of them ran, and taking a sponge, he filled it with sour wine and put it on a reed, and gave him a drink. But the rest of them said, let's see whether Elijah will come and save him. And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the veil of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split, and the tombs were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And so Jesus' life was attended with many miracles. And also in his death, God the Father was doing miracles here. That when it says 6th hour, that's noon. When it says 9th hour, that's 3 o'clock. So for 3 hours, there was darkness. And at the end of that time, he cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me? I think this verse is a key for us when we think about Good Friday, because at that point, the sins of the world were placed upon Jesus, and he died in our place. Isaiah 53 says, surely our griefs he himself bore, and our sorrows he carried. Yet we ourselves esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was pierced through for our transgressions. He was crushed. For our iniquities, and the chastening for our well-being fell upon him. And by his scourging we are healed. Also, as we look over in the New Testament, we see in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21, it says, he made him who knew no sin to be sin on our behalf, so that we might become the righteousness of God in him. So that's what makes it Good Friday. It was bad for Jesus, but it was good for us. He took our sin and offers his righteousness to us. Have you received the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ?